Should we get started? Okay, who's first time at the IHEART?
Yeah, me.
Oh, welcome.
You're right.
Welcome, everybody.
Sorry.
And before we start, Kat, is this your signal?
Yes.
We've just got a little something from us to Jodie to say thank you.
Thanks. Pleasure. All my own work. You should have given it to me after, so I'd given it to Mum for another occasion. I'll pop this on here so you can smell the aroma.
As Mum's Friday night gift.
Yeah, thanks.
That's a small gesture of our huge thanks to Jodie, as most people here, I'm not sure if everyone knows that Jodie, what we're talking about tonight, a little bit of what we're going to be talking about is Jodie just ran 5 marathons essentially over 6 days, 7 days?
Yeah, 6 days.
Across the Sahara Desert, and raised an enormous amount of money for IHEART, which is just incredible. And it's almost unfathomable. And I think what we want to do tonight is not just talk about the amazing kind of feat and phenomena of being able to actually do that mentally and physically, which is incredible. I think all of us sit there and go, what? You know, but I think what means a lot to Jodie is what she's learned in terms of her own mental health, and seeing that in context of running the race and her own even relationship to running a race like that. What that means for her, what that represents, and her learning through that. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and we invite anybody to ask any questions, but we'll maybe start off speaking a little bit. We're just going to be in conversation, and then we'll kind of open it up to questions. But if at any point people have questions, then feel free to chime in. Just to give those people who aren't maybe aware that IHEART is an organization, it's a charity and non-profit. And at the heart of our work is teaching young people about their innate mental health and well-being. We're very focused on mental health, not mental illness. We have the IHEART program, which is a curriculum that we've designed and that we teach in schools and in any educational settings, in football academies, in PRU units, where a few thousand kids have gone through the IHEART program since it was created. Sorry. So I'm just moderating you and we're actually just starting our primary curriculum, because this curriculum's been for secondary schools, and 2 days ago myself and Don Aronson started the primary creation. We want kids as young as kindergarten to start to learn about what we teach, and we're very excited about it. It's making a big impact, and of course the funds that Jodie raised are just so needed, because a lot of the schools, especially the schools where we're working, do not have the funds. They're so bankrupt, the schools at the moment, to actually pay for these programs, and they're desperate for them. So we're so thankful and grateful. So
Same time next year.
Is she allowed, Mum?
Yeah, comment.
So where should we start? Where would you like to start?
I guess from the start, really.
Okay.
Well, the reason of why I decided to sign up for the race.
Okay.
And the journey that led to that, really.
Okay, brilliant. Brilliant.
So I think the reason why I wanted to do this race was more about a celebration for me. It was, a closing of a chapter, but an opening of a new chapter in one sense, of the journey I went on through my depression, knowing that really dark phase, and coming out of it and being at a point where I hope to finish my Ph.D. this year, which was something that I wasn't sure was even going to happen, or having the next day was even going to happen. So for me, this was just a celebration of everything that I love to do.
Some of us celebrate by like going to the bar, having a drink, we all have different ways of celebrating.
Yeah, so my PhD is focusing on maximising performance in the heat, and running across the Sahara Desert.
It's a good way to research.
Yeah. Really helps to, keep that passion alight. And yeah, so it was really everything that I love to do.
How was this race different? Because you are an athlete, right? We say you're a professional athlete.
No.
You've done, like this isn't the first time that you've done what you've done Ironman. How was this different for you?
Yeah, so doing the Marathon Des Sables wasn't about trying to fulfill something. It was about doing something that I love to do and doing it with no needed outcome or way to make me feel. Doing Ironman for a long time was about trying to have this thing from the outside make me feel better. When I first did it, it wasn't really about that. It was just, wow, there's a thing called Ironman, and I saw it on a YouTube video, and I was like, this is insane, I've got to do it. And then once I did
I watched the YouTube video and have
do you not get that far?
This is insane. I don't know why people do it.
I'll tell you the one that I watched. So I watched this video and I was like, wow, I've got to do it. And I did it and I loved it. And then I was like, I got into this whole just negative thinking of trying to do something to make me feel better. And I had a really low self-confidence. A lot of self-doubt in, what I do with sport and exercise. And I thought if I could potentially win this race, then maybe, I'll feel better, I'll feel more confident, and people won't think I'm so dumb, or maybe I won't think I'm dumb, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I set about trying to win.
And what Jodie's speaking about, what Jodie's speaking about is a common misunderstanding, and is one of the drivers of what you call mental ill health in the world, is that a human being doesn't feel good. We don't like not feeling good, and we look for something from the outside to fix what we're feeling on the inside. And it doesn't matter if that's a drug or something that can look really healthy, like exercise or food or whatever it is. But we don't understand where our feelings come from. It's one of the things we educate the young people about, that our feelings come from the power of thought in the moment. They come from our thinking in the moment.
Struggling to hear you.
Oh, they are? Oh, Kat, is this on the loudest one?
Yeah, it should be.
That's strange.
Does everyone have trouble hearing?
Is everybody having trouble hearing? Is that everyone? No?
No, it's all.
You can all hear with your thumbs up if you can hear.
It's better.
Oh,
It's
okay,
better
so
now.
maybe it just needed to be
Okay,
here. Okay. So we teach young people that their well-being and the deeper feelings that we're looking for as human beings are inside of us. That they're part of our default setting, and we teach them why that is. And the only reason we don't feel them all the time is that we feel our thinking moment to moment, and we can have a lot of unnecessary thinking on our minds. When our minds quieten down, those deeper feelings are in us. Our well-being resides within us. When we don't know this, we don't feel good, and we go looking for stuff to try and make us feel better. And so as we were speaking about upstairs, it's a disappointing and confusing search, because it doesn't provide us the solution you're looking for. And you had that experience, I think, with Ironman.
Yeah. It went on to this negative path of doing something where, I was going down on this depressive kind of route as it was, and getting out of bed just to train was really difficult. But I still had this drive and this belief that if I won this race, that my whole life would be different, and just my confidence in myself was going to be just so much better. And then what happens is you get to that point and you race, and I was, whether I was luck on the people that were in my age group at the time, or just my ability to be able to perform, I won it. And I was so certain that winning was going, literally, like, everything was going to feel better. And then I crossed the finishing line, and I was so zoned out by my own head, I guess, because I just wasn't present at all. Probably for that whole year, I felt like I wasn't present. And I finished, and they had said that I'd won, but I didn't even know that I'd won.
Yes.
And when I found out it was like, okay. And it was probably good for like a day.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember saying to someone, how long can I feel happy about this? Because I just thought like it's an expiry date. But the reality was like this winning did not change anything. And if anything, knowing that when I went down really, really fast, you know, to the point of desperation or lost hope, really.
So tell us now about running this race, how it was different for you, where your head was going in and what you learned that was different for you.
Yeah, so it was 3 years on from everything that had happened, and I'd learned that none of these things from the outside are going to make me feel any way. And that's why I didn't have an expectation of a position. All I really just wanted to do was, you know, finish. I'm quite competitive, so I'd always try and be the best I can be. But it wasn't about a position or anything like that. And yeah, it was just about really enjoying being in the moment and having an experience that we have in life, rather than trying to have an experience to change how I feel. It was just be in the moment in the most incredible surroundings and doing something that I just generally love to do.
How did you, I mean, this was a question that I had, like I was so intrigued while you were running the race, you know, we were we wrote you a few emails and we knew you were out there in the elements. Like overall, like how much of the time were you like in the zone and appreciating the desert, and how much of the time were you just in so much pain thinking, I can't do this for another second? Like what was the ratio of that, you know?
Like this, you're just like constantly being like, I love this, I love this, keep going,
what am I doing?
just stop.
Yeah.
Can I just have like chicken soup? No, you can't.
For those of you who don't know, I mean, Jodie carried for the full week all her possessions, belongings, food on her back. That was it. You know, it wasn't like there was a fast food store or a bed somewhere, or you carry your life on your back.
That to me was like the best bit about the race, because it's like that confidence again that you have everything within you on your back.
Yeah. Just the metaphor, we go with it.
Yeah. I'm just spinning into the IHEART.
I like it.
I'm just, you can survive, basically. They give you water, which is a key essential, but you know, the fundamental part of it is you've worked 9 months to a year, however long you train for these things, you know, at going out and training your body. So it's like, you know, and it's kind of the same thing with going and learning about mental health. You've got to constantly, you know, reapply and keep working on something. And then you go to the desert and you just have this inner belief that you've got
what it needs to finish this race. It's one of the things we also, for those who are not familiar with the IHEART program, we teach the young people that they have the resources they need to deal with their life, both the unexpected stuff that happens outside of them, the circumstances in life which we all know we can't control, and the feelings they have inside of them too. They have an intelligent psychological system that's equipped to deal with their life, and nobody's under-resourced. No one's under-resourced. And so just like for you to run that level of race, you needed to know how your physiological body worked, and you'll have so much knowledge that us sitting in the room don't have. So we won't be able to run that distance. We'll have no idea how to. You've got such an intricate knowledge of how the body works. And what we teach the young people is how their minds work and how their psychological system works. The body, if you know how it works and you leverage the potential of it, you can run for 7 days in the desert, right? And the same is true when we know how our psychological systems work. We can run that marathon over our lives. We're equipped to do that. It's fit for purpose. Our minds are fit in our psychological systems for purpose. And that's what we teach. That's the teaching and education that we give the young people. So.
And I think it's that knowing that it doesn't matter. You don't have to go fast. You just have to keep going.
Yeah, moment to moment, as you were saying.
That's the thing. And that's one thing why I love ultra endurance running, is because you've just got to keep going. You just got to put your head down and just take one step at a time. And it relates very much into everyday life of you've got to get up got to get out of bed. Like that was the biggest task for me before. And then you've got to have a shower, brush your teeth, don't worry, Mum. And then, you know, you got to get ready, and it's the same thing. It is all about putting one foot in front of the other and knowing that you can just break it down into small chunks. You know, whether you're really struggling or just living life as you are in the moment, but it's just taking your time with everything.
And life is, because that's again, and I'm just bringing it into the work that we do, life is lived moment to moment. That is, we don't know how we're going to feel 3 moments from now. We don't know what thinking we'll have, and we don't know what feeling we'll have, because our thinking creates our feeling. So we can't predict how we're going to feel. And I think one of the most frightening things for a young person or an old person is that when they're feeling so overwhelmed or so down or so anxious, it feels like that'll last forever. And they don't understand that that's not how the human operating system works. It's a moment to moment. This power of thought, we're experiencing it in the moment, and our thinking is naturally changing. And so even though it feels wall to wall like that's forever, it's not true. It's a temporary creation of the mind. And we actually have this lovely activity where we get the kids to play Play-Doh, and they all kind of make their little Play-Doh creations, and we use that as a metaphor, because we show them that even though everyone makes different things in the room, we show them that the same raw material was used to create all of them. And that's what we call, we're calling the power of thought. There's this power that's creating our experiences moment to moment. If you make a banana of the Play-Doh, that's not a banana. I mean, it looks like a banana, but it's Play-Doh, right? And Play-Doh, you can make Play-Doh into anything. It has infinite creative potential. Well, the mind has infinite creative potential. It can create anything for us. It's not limited. And what it creates is temporary, just like that banana is temporary, because we can make something else in the next moment, right? You can make something else and something else. And we get the kids to keep on playing and keep on creating. And that's true of how our experience works too. We're always experiencing a temporary creation of this incredible potential to experience life, this incredible energy which gives us an experience. So it's just something beautiful about, and you were talking about knowing how, because I think, again, and parents really struggle with this, and it makes parenting, I think, quite difficult and burdensome, is that a parent doesn't like their kid not to feel good. And they get worried when their child's not doing well or feeling good, right? And that's difficult because you can't control what your child feels. For parents who know, that's just not possible, right? Because they're having their own thinking, feeling experience. And there's a misunderstanding that mental health is about feeling good all the time, that we're meant to feel happy all the time. We're meant to feel good. And if you're a mentally healthy person, then you should feel good all the time. And that's a complete myth, and it sets up people to feel unhappy because they're not feeling happy. They think there's something wrong with them. They get insecure. They feel guilty. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with my life? And we tell their kids there's nothing wrong with feeling any feeling. It's a temporary creation of the mind. It's all coming from the same incredible power that creates everything. The same thing that creates a moment of anxiety is what creates a moment of joy. And we're living in a moment-to-moment experience. And none of us thought when our kids were 2 that when they were crying and having a tantrum that they had mental ill health, right? And then they were terrified of the clown, and then they were happy. We weren't thinking, gosh, they're bipolar, or what's wrong with them, or they're unstable, or we weren't. We thought this is a little mentally healthy child. And then when we grow bigger, we somehow now judge ourselves and our kids when they're not feeling good, and we don't allow them to feel. And because we live in thought and we're thinking, feeling creatures, it's the most normal thing to feel. And we're going to feel a whole range of feelings. We've become frightened of not feeling good. And we associate it with, as I said, mental ill health. So I think that there was a way of you understanding that and how it's fine to not feel good, and that it's a moment-to-moment experience. It's been, like, I'd say maybe life-changing, or brought a lot of resilience for you that wasn't there before.
Yeah, definitely always after a race, you have that feeling of kind of like a refresh overall, because, you know, there's that, you're dealing more like with more down moments than good moments post-race, which is, you know, a lot of factors, because you've had an incredible experience, a life-changing experience, and then you're back to reality. There's that just fatigue, you know, just disruption in hormones and everything that causes you to be, you know, a little bit more tired and whatever. But it's like knowing that you're okay with feeling like that kind of thing, but everyone else around you doesn't.
They panic.
They panic a lot. And it's like you're okay with feeling not okay. Because, you know, like in truth, and loads of people who, you know, and I've done this, I've sat in this room and I hear people speak and I'm like, wow, they don't, like, it doesn't seem like they go through any negative thinking, or they just seem like they've just got over their depression.
Utopia.
And they're amazing now. And I'm like, wow, like, is that true?
No.
It's not. No. And I want that to be known, because, you know, there's not a day that goes by, we're talking about this, where I don't sit at my desk trying to finish my PhD. And I think I'm failing. I'm not good enough. This is really hard. And I'm just not getting anywhere with it. Then I have to go to sleep and I have to repeat that again. It's that constant cycle. But knowing that's just my thoughts and that potentially isn't really reality is so useful to know. And again, last night I was like, you know, I don't want to come and talk to everyone. And I was like, I really think I should cancel this. How can I sit here and tell you life is amazing?
Me and the flowers.
Smell better than me. And then I was like, Jodie, don't, because you're going to wake up in the morning and you're going to be a different person. So I know I have this power now that I know that things change so rapidly, and that's a nice feeling, because when you're in a bad moment, it's not like I've got to panic. Okay, what can I do to change this? Should I used to before sign up for another race, and I put myself on a ban.
She's hardcore, hey?
So I don't.
I'm feeling good, I'll sign up for another race. I'll just like have a donut. I did do that after the race. It's not so good long time. So you're like constantly trying to change that feeling. Yes.
And it's like the snow globe effect, you know, what we said, and I heard Deccan talk about this, of, you know, you don't feel good, so you're shaking a snow globe. And the more you shake it, the more you just can't see the clarity of it, because, you know, you're trying to fix it, but by fixing it, you're just shaking it more and more. And then if you just let it be and it just settles, and then you can just be like, okay, I have the bigger picture here and I can see what it is, and it's okay, basically.
It's very cool. I think it's a very, very powerful thing when you understand where your experience or feeling comes from. And you know that it's going to be generated from what we call the mind, or thought in the moment. And you know that your mind will produce new thinking. It's how the mind's designed to work. And it allows you to have a tolerance to feel, not to try and push away the feeling or run away or do something or get in your head, as you say. You know, it allows us just to feel. And then when the mind naturally changes, it's such a beautiful thing. And it gives you a confidence in your mind that it will do what it's meant to do. That's really cool. There was something else you said about that I wanted to talk to, when you talked about, you know, I can't do it, or I'm rubbish at it, or etc. Or this is something that we see with teenagers so much. You know, when teenagers start to feel very intense feelings, this was definitely my experience as a teenager. You start to feel like there's something wrong with you, or this is you. So, for example, I felt a lot of self-conscious feelings. So I started to think, oh, I'm self-conscious, right? Which you can see why they would, because you're feeling it and experiencing it. So you relate to yourself as it almost becomes part of your skin. You become attached to it. You define yourself as a self-conscious person or an anxious person. I'm an anxious person. I'm an intense person. And you get all these labels. What's so interesting, because we work with a lot of teenagers in the center, is you see that some teenagers experience these feelings but don't become attached to them. They don't define themselves. They almost intuitively understand, like when they were little, and had, you know, and like when we normal human beings, that they're just having a temporary experience of their own minds. But that's not them. That's a thought-created experience. It's something they're experiencing, but it's not them. And they allow themselves, they almost develop the resilience to feel these feelings without defining them, without creating an identity around them. And when you speak, that's what I hear. So you can have some of that same thinking, but it's not sticking to you like it's me, I am rubbish. It's like, no, I'm having a thought-created experience of being rubbish, but it almost can dissolve and you can move forward. And that's what allows you to keep on with the PhD, etc., rather than it becoming who you are, you know. So that's a pretty cool thing to see. The difference between that is huge. So,
Yeah, because, you know, if you're just in that negative thinking, and that's where, you know, before I wasn't able to separate it.
yes. Feels like it is you.
So
Feels
it
like
was
it's just,
me, and that would mean, you know, after dealing with that for so many times, you know, then the drive and the motivation to get out of bed is like not there, because you know, why
I'm so rubbish, why should I even bother?
But you know, and the drive and motivation, you know, to keep bringing yourself to your desk every day, or whatever it is, your career, or to do something, takes so much energy. But if you can literally just in that moment, if you have to consciously do it and say to yourself that's just a thought, then it takes less energy to have to deal with that constant battle in your own head.
Really cool.
So, but you know, the reality is everyone has negative thinking, positive thinking, but knowing that nothing lasts forever is really powerful. So, and you know, sometimes that's a sad thing, but the benefit is, you know, whether you're doing a race that I experience, you know, this is really tough. I had a really bad back on the second day, and I had all of you guys on the tracker on my shoulder with your face here, and I was like, I can't let you guys down. I just remember it wasn't that sad. I got it on myself. And, you know, and it's like that moment of just like, you know, you just got to
push through that. Did it get better? Like, because you think that if you're carrying this, you have a bad back on the second day, it's not going to feel much better on the third day. You know?
Second day was my worst day.
Oh, really?
So, and that was actually the first time in the whole race experience I questioned whether I was going to finish.
Yes.
When before it was just not if, it was when.
Yes.
In that moment, it was, I don't know if this was even, you know, possible, not because of my lack of ability, but just because of the pain I was going through.
Yeah.
But the team there are just incredible, and literally there's 450 volunteers, and the medical team were just wow. So they literally strapped my back up.
Yes.
It's just paracetamol. Like they have to, like, you know, monitor how much you have. But I was literally going at every checkpoint and trying to get as much as I could.
What were they giving you?
Like paracetamol or
morphine.
That was, I may have could have won if I had that. Maybe next time.
Is that illegal?
I think I've had much probably more negative effects. And just, you know, getting through each checkpoint, and then, you know, waking up the third day, and I just remember trying to put my bag on and just being like, even putting my bag on was painful. And then, and I love talking about this because I always think this is, you know, men when they race, it's a lot easier, but women have to think about our menstrual cycles and the effects of that. And of course, I started during the race. And people are like, oh my God, I can't believe you're talking about that. But that is life, and you have to then, that's another obstacle, and you have to deal with that, and you have to understand that nothing ever goes your way.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's a normal thing for me to deal with in these situations. So,
wow.
And my physiology brain is a bit like, well, I'm going to be hotter because when we're menstruating, we're a lot warmer, and therefore my core temperature is going to go up quicker during a race. I'm going to potentially be sweating more because I'm hotter, losing more fluid. So then I have to like, okay, stop thinking.
Yes.
And so
wow.
So having to, like, you know, go through that as well.
Yes.
And just knowing that, okay, I just have a choice.
Yes. And
the choice was to do the best I could do. So, you know, the team strapped me up, and I just put my head down and kept going, really.
There's kind of no room on this race to feel like a victim. It's just
no one's going to comfort you.
No one's going to,
You've obviously got your tent mates and, you know, people that you get really close to there. But this is the one opportunity I had where I didn't need to take my phone.
Yes.
And it's a very selfish thing, but where in life today can we actually not have our phones on us, you know, in for a whole week in the Sahara?
Yeah.
Well, there's signal in some areas, but it was just extra weight in my eyes. I didn't need to carry that.
To carry that on your back.
Yeah, I had a number of Excel spreadsheets, so I weighed everything down to a T. I mean, so I knew my phone was about 197 grams.
Yes.
And I was like, I just can't.
Food.
Well, yeah, food or just another source of, you know, I wanted an iPod. And actually when I got to the start line, I turned my iPod on and all my music had wiped off.
What? Oh, really?
So I'd like planned that I was going to listen to music, and I've listened to it in training as well. Not always, because sometimes I just like nothing. And I was like, oh, I can't believe this is happening. I was like on the start line, and I was like, I help everyone else get to the like start line or races and prepare everyone else. And I was like, one thing that I thought was going to be really beneficial to me. And when I turned it on, I was like, well, that's 88 grams of waste. It weighed 88 grams. And my friend really kindly gave me her phone.
Yes.
For that day. And then I had an idea to do a voice note of her music. So it became creative.
Oh.
But the reality was I just didn't need it at all.
Really?
I just didn't need that power of like the music, and
really?
All I needed was 15 minutes at the start line, because I get quite nervous at the start line. It's just the unknown, you don't know how your body's going to feel, and you've got 900 people just going for it. So I like, you know, having the music just allows me to zone out. But you know, I was, you know, just actually having an earpiece in was actually really effective.
Really? Yeah.
And today, I took some Bluetooth headphones for a run, and they went boop, 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 and like that means no more battery. Yes. And I was like, well, I've done the Sahara. You can't scare me. And then my mum phones me, and I was like, oh, they are working.
I work for mum phone. They always come back alive.
So, like, you know, experiencing those challenges as such during that condition.
It's such a metaphor for life, because that's it. We don't expect this to happen, you know. Something gets cancelled and something goes wrong in our daily life, and we get so thrown by it, because again, we're operating from what we call the outside in, where we think that the outside creates our inside. So this now is not happening, and we feel like we're going to fall apart. It has so much power over us. And so when you're not in that space where you're seeing that your experience is coming from the inside, it's being generated from thought, there's a way that this happens, and your mind will give you the thinking you need to deal with it. You know, you won't lose yourself, your security. It's inside of you.
Yeah.
And
the phone is a massive security. Yeah. Because knowing that I could finish, and like the first thing I really want to do is call my mum.
Yes.
So it's that comfort. And it's like, Mum. She's obviously like, I'm so proud of you. Yes. You're like, but I did so bad. And she's like, always going to be proud of you. So that comfort is like, so it's like a cushion, you know, nice pillow. And there was one stage, like the long stage, of where I really needed that, because I just pushed. It was like 78 kilometers. Sure. And I had a really bad stomach early on, and I couldn't eat my food. So I had a set amount of calories, because I couldn't just get a delivery or anything. So I had literally X amount of calories. So I knew for that day I had 3,000. But I lost 500 because I couldn't eat my breakfast. Yes. And then I had a really bad stomach, and I only really ate about 600 calories that day. And so I just pushed and pushed and kept pushing. And I just remember finishing and just wanting to call my mum, and knowing that that's quite nice, because you're not relying on. Yes. It was like it was okay, like because I had, you know, everything that I needed around me or within me, basically.
You know, and you can't contact anyone, right, on that race.
So if you want to, you can have your phone. Yeah. So you're allowed to, and you also can send an email out every day. Yes. My mum's looking at me like, really? I can't believe it. You were never in touch. someone had a satellite phone,
Yeah.
and I was like, "What are you doing?" Like, that was crazy.
Yeah.
So you can send an email and you can call. They have, and it's like €20 for 10 minutes. I was like, I'm not spending that. I'm sorry. PhD life is going to be. No, but I did call her on the last day.
Yes.
And I was like really excited. She's like, I'm just here drinking champagne. I was like, yeah. So like, you live in this whole, you think life's changing so much and everything just carries on the same.
The same outside, exactly. Mum drinking champagne.
Celebrating.
Across the finish line. Had a drink.
So cool. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you is that one of the paradigm shift that we're looking to create out in the world and with young people is that people identify when they're not feeling good or they're struggling, that they have mental illness, that there's something wrong with them, and now they've got to cope with that and live with that. Because when you feel bad for a long time, you think there must be something wrong with me. And most of the professionals say, yeah, there is something wrong with you. You'll need to see me for the rest of your life or take meds for the rest of your life. And people lose faith in the fact that we're born with what we call innate mental health. And yes, we have misunderstandings in the way, just like, you know, somebody who runs without knowledge of the physiology will hit physical walls, right? So we have misunderstandings psychologically and we can hit psychological brick walls. But with knowledge and education, those walls can start to come down, you know, but nobody is born without mental health. And it sounds to me like you have gone from, I mean, I know this was definitely my experience of living, believing that I had issues and problems that were from my personality or my genetics or my biology or my chemistry, or I had a million different reasons of why I was like I was and why I struggled so much for many years with mental health issues. But it took quite a big insight and a change that I experienced to have confidence and believe that I had mental health, as did all other human beings. And then that gave me the impetus and the passion to want to share that with other people, because I saw how much damage that had caused me not knowing that, and in fact being told the others. And what we've seen in schools when we go out is that as soon as somebody's not feeling good and is anxious, a little kid's anxious about exams or something, they're told you might have an anxiety disorder, you should see your doctor, you know, there is medication for this, and they go on a trajectory of thinking that they're sick and that they're not well. And, you know, and I'm not speaking and I'm not making any kind of judgment of if you should take meds or not, etc. And that's not my role and that's not what my expertise. But the fact is that we have kids that come in here at that critical point and we give them confidence in their own mental health. We allow them not to be afraid of their feelings. We show them where they're coming from, and the stuff they think is frightening them is not, and it's a trick of the mind. And as they learn about how the psychological mind works, they start to change and they start to experience more health, and they get over their feelings much quicker, and they learn to live with uncomfortable feelings, and they get a confidence in their own mental health. They have a complete change in how they're relating to their own feelings, etc. And instead of building them up, they kind of see the way to allow them to collapse. And so then they have a chance to think again and feel again. And so it kind of feels to me like that you've got more faith in your mental health, from having very little to having more and more. Where you at in that kind of, and again, that doesn't mean that you're feeling good all the time, you know? So
yeah, I think it's knowing that it's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Like, it does matter because it's scary sometimes, and it's hard and it can be frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing that in the next moment it could be completely different. So I don't need to kind of put a label on it and be like, well, I'm depressed now. Because then the next moment I'm not depressed.
Yeah.
And then and knowing that it's just okay at the moment, and through in the future, I don't know, that I just go back and forward, I guess, through something just called life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know,
I think
every day it changes.
I think what eventually starts happening is you're not so conscious of your feelings anymore. I think you become hyper alert to your feelings. You know, we again meet so many kids who are taught to keep a mood diary of how they're feeling, and they like it's such a tragedy. It actually wants to make me cry. And when I see this, because they're so hyper alert to what they're feeling, it's like, I'm not feeling good between 11 and 12, and I was feeling, and I'm like, just go and live your lives. Like, don't worry about it. We're thinking, feeling creatures, and they're so hyper alert. And I think one of the things about this education is that you don't notice so much what you're feeling. Not because you're in denial or anything, but because you understand that you're having a temporary creation of the mind, and you're just more in life then. You're in life, you're with people, you're doing your work, and you're not sitting there in your head judging how you're feeling all the time. And that's very freeing.
I'm probably more in the judging aspect because I'm always really worried
Yes.
that I'm going to go to something that I can't control,
Mm-hmm.
when I wasn't able to control. But I, and hopefully through this continued journey, I
Learning.
just will start to, the noise will go down,
Absolutely. So that's why I was asking you, because I feel like you're on a journey of that. Like, I feel like that's where your learning's going to take you, So I think maybe it's nice if we could maybe take a few questions. And again, if people have just, don't feel embarrassed to say like, well, where did you go to the bathroom or something? If you just got a question. It's a fascinating thing. There are not many people you're going to meet who are going to run across the Sahara Desert and essentially run, for 6 days across the Sahara Desert. So any questions you have about that or about any of this, whatever we've been talking about, now's your chance to ask.
What were the temperatures?
So temperatures at night, I think the lowest it got to was about 6. So it's quite cold at night, which is a completely different, being in your sleeping bag and shivering is really not comfortable at all. And then in the day, I think maybe the hottest day maybe got to late 40s. Potentially. I didn't have, obviously a phone to tell me, and rumours do go around, but what we have to understand is through the course, your exposure at different times in the day will change depending on solar radiation and a number of other factors. So there were times where it got a lot hotter, and again then as you move through the course, maybe out of the sand dunes, it will change again. So but yeah, it was hot. There was one day that I really struggled with that, and it was more because I was just running out of water.
You don't have to carry all your water, do you?
No, so they give you water at checkpoints, so you get a certain amount. So it could be 1.5 to 3 litres, depending on the day it was and the stage it was, sorry. But, so you'd fill up your bottles, so mine were like 800 mils each, and then you'd have a little bit left to put over you to cool yourself down. And then when they were giving me 3 litres, I had this soft, like flask, like spare water bottle, and I'd put water in that, and that would be my cooling aid during the race, because I just needed that extra cooling mechanism, really, because it was just sometimes a little bit too hot.
A little bit too hot. Yeah.
So can I ask you a question? You, everything you've been saying like how you teach young people in terms of not what to think, but how to think and not to panic when they get in those moments. Would you say you would do the exact same thing for an older person who's obviously been through life traumas and been through things that are going to trigger different, can you mold it as easily? Is it the same practice that you do in terms of, okay, I know that I'm feeling down, so this is fine. But if you've been through so much, how do you just switch that on?
Well, first of all, just to say, I'm not doing justice to what we teach in terms of what I'm saying right now, because there's a depth and a simplicity to it. But it's the same depth and simplicity that we teach adults and kids. Obviously, when we go into the classroom, we're doing it, and the kids are doing activities and they're engaging with us, and it's very interactive. It's not like a passive us just telling them and them saying, most human beings, not only kids, but the kids are coming and they don't go, yeah, that's true, that's great. They go, this is rubbish, and we don't want to learn this, and we don't believe this. But over the course of the curriculum, they see that they've had a logic through which they've thought that human experience works. And now they see that that logic doesn't hold anymore. There's a new logic that comes alive for them. And that's what we're showing them. And we build that up for them over time. So we put one little piece of the puzzle, another, and then the whole thing comes in and they go, wow, that's true. So in the beginning, and we give them lots and lots of space to say, We give them these little quadrants at the end where they can agree with us, right? Something you agreed with, or something you disagreed, something you liked, you didn't like, a question you have. So we give them an opportunity to disagree with us, to ask their questions in a way that's a bit anonymous, because they might not want to do that, even though a lot do that in the class. And we allow them to really learn and challenge and see it for themselves until they have their own insight or realization. In the beginning, we'll have people saying, well, if somebody bullies me or is mean to me, that does make me feel hurt. Now, part of what we teach is that no one can make you, has the power to put a feeling in you. It might seem like they can, right? Because they say something and you feel hurt, but your feeling comes through the power of thought, through your thinking. And you've got to think it to feel it. And they first say, no, that's not true, that's not true. And then there's a moment where they have an insight, they see the truth of that. Something happens on the playground, and they see that they're feeling, and they have a change of thought, and they have a new experience, and they feel empowered and free. And suddenly they're like, wow, it is true. You know, and then they from that moment on, like something shifts for them. And so the same basis or the same understanding is what we teach adults. You know, that was the work that we did, or I did, for over a decade before I took it to young people, because almost every adult we were working with was saying, I wish we'd learned this younger. I wish we'd learned this when we were small. And I was essentially seeing that adults were having the same problems or misunderstandings as young people. You know, all the misunderstandings around relationships and insecurities and around their own feelings and addictive compulsive behaviors and all of the stuff that they were grappling with. It was just an adult kind of version of it, but it was all started on the playground. It all started when they 3, 4, 5, and this person didn't want to play with them, right? And now you weren't invited to a function, or your boss doesn't like you, or, you know, it's the same things. And so those misunderstandings can get quite deeply rooted. So in fact, like, you know, Debbie over here is working in a school, and I went to join her the other week. I filled in for someone, and she's teaching 3 or 6 classes, and the teachers of those classes sit in on the classes. And then afterwards, in the afternoon, Debbie teaches the teachers what she's teaching the kids. So they have opportunity to see the kids learn, and then they learn it for themselves. And so I went in, this was, I think, week 7. And I mean, to see these 3 classes of kids, they're 10 years old, the insights and the realizations that were coming out of them.
Year 6. The 6th session that they were having.
Was a 6th session, was unbelievable. I mean, the one little kid was so cute. He's like, I think I'm having a realization. Is that possible? And then he shares it with us, and it's so profound. And the other one, it was so cute what they were learning and seeing. And these kids that argued, they challenged, they were really learning. But you saw in the session of the adults, these particular doesn't always work this way. They were grappling a little more. It's taking them a little bit more time, because they're kind of a little bit more committed to what they know and how they think life works. But they get there in the end. We have a lot of faith, and we give them that time. But it's the same thing we're teaching the adults and the kids. You know, we just might not play with Play-Doh. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't with the adults. It's the same core understanding or principles. Yeah. Any other questions?
Jodie, I remember before you went, you were saying that you were looking forward to running in the nighttime and just being at one with nature and having that experience of no interference. Can you tell us a bit about what that felt like?
Ran a bit too fast to be in night time. Just too fast. No, I only had about 5K where it was really dark, and that was something that loads of people told me about, that you get this whole experience and it's just amazing, and the stars. And I was a bit in my head because I was like, I've just got to get to the finish line. So,
you never got to see running with the stars.
Yeah,
you were sleeping by that time.
My competitive nature took over, but in reality, there was other times that I could be at one with that, and you know, I'd get up in the night, and which was the worst thing if I needed to go to the toilet and for a wee, getting out of the sleeping bag, and it's so cold, but you turn your torch off and you just have a look up. Yeah. And it's really beautiful. And yeah, that was really, it is amazing. And it's just beautiful. There's no distractions, and yeah, it's a really simple life. Just get up, eat, run, come back, eat, sleep.
Can I ask you, when you went to bed at night, sorry, on the floor at night, how did you have to prepare yourself mentally for the next day? Was there a plan?
Quite a good question.
You impressed us?
So before I went to sleep every night, I'd try and reread all my messages that I received. And that was part of like the planning, because it just meant that everyone that had been watching me, I knew they were there supporting me for the next day. So that was really important for me, firstly. Secondly, I would either try and read the roadmap the night before or in the morning, just look at, you know, at what point was it checkpoints, or what was the terrain, you know, was it going to be a little bit more sandy or a bit rocky, or so I prepare for that.
I love it. You're like, in the desert, they're going to be sandy or rocky. It doesn't get much more interesting than that. Or sandy or rocky or sandy.
Rocky, it's just the same thing, right?
Exactly.
Whether it's going to be tough or tougher.
Yeah.
So that would just help me just break it down, because otherwise it's just 35 or 70 kilometers is just too much. And then it was just enjoyment. I would just take it as it comes, but I don't really mentally prepare that much more.
Did you recap on your day and think, okay, today's longer, I can do this differently today, I can learn to conserve my energy, or it's went for it?
Mostly I just really just, thing is, you never quite knew until you put one foot in front of the other, like on that start line, of how you were going to feel. And even then, it was just 5-6 hours of constant change as well. So through everything that I try and do is just do the best I can do. And if I feel comfortable, push on. If I don't, I just reserve myself. And
what I found was very inspirational when on our messages. Well, you spoke about it just before, and just briefly, that when you hit 30k or 70k, you were feeling like horrid. And explain what really happened to you with this kind of out-of-body experience that you had.
during the long stage.
You were feeling ill, you hadn't eaten, stuff was killing you.
So, no, I just wasn't feeling 100%. And I would love to say it was this massive out-of-body experience, but I could feel every foot I was putting down. So I knew I was really present in my body. But it was just like, my papa used to say this one thing to me, like, no granddaughter of mine gives up.
Oh.
So it was that like constant like playing that in my head. And I think the hardest thing about finishing was I said to myself that he was going to be there.
Yeah.
And he wasn't.
Well, not in form. Right.
But he was like there.
Yeah.
And I think that realization was harder.
Yeah. But are you saying in that moment there was...
So you pushed on, it made you push, didn't it?
Yeah, because, you know, his work that he did for charity.
Yes.
And in the community was so important to me.
Yes.
So this is my way of doing it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not a business person yet. Mum, don't coming. I'm not, I don't, you know, but this is the one way that I can try and make a difference. And it's through my ability to just have a passion for running. Yeah. And if it means that I do these crazy things and I can raise money for something that's really important to me, then that's really what makes a big difference. And that's the whole point of living, I guess, for me. And that was the one thing I was so proud of him. And one of my, you know, earliest memories of listening to him giving someone an opportunity. And if I can help just one child, you know, have this opportunity, will just be the best.
Well, you'll help many, many children. And just to say, and one of the things we should do is take Jodie with us to see the work that's been done, so you can see what each step in the desert, the contribution you make. Because when you see that little face light up in the classroom, and we're very privileged because we get to see that, it is just so heartwarming. You know, they see the little face light up, and they've learned something and they know it's going to help them, and they're so excited to share it. So I think we must do that, Deb.
Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock.
I'm running. No, that'd be unlovely.
So what's the beginning with the 900 running?
I think there was meant to be about 900 to start with, but then
There was a different distance.
yes, so the first 3 days ranged between about 32 kilometres to 37, and then you had one long day, which was about 77, 78. My watch always recorded more, and I think that's because I always go literally the path less travelled, because literally everyone runs through, not everyone, a lot of people tend to run on the same as everyone else, and it becomes, quite sandy, and it turns up quite a lot. And I'll try and get up a little bit more on the ridge or kind of on the harder sand. So I love that aspect of it. It's technical, it's you're alert, you're in the moment, and you're constantly looking at where the next move to make. That's what I really like.
So how many people didn't finish that started?
I'm not 100% aware, but maybe it could be up to 100 in total. I don't know a number, no, but it does happen, and it's really sad when that happens, because, I had a close friend also who, unfortunately, you can't take any of this for granted. I had an amazing race, and I was really lucky, and I worked really hard for it, and I managed myself really well during it. Mm-hmm. But sometimes, maybe another year I wouldn't have been able to. So we can't always manage, and we don't always know the outcome of everything, and we have to just go with the flow of it. So it's a really humbling experience in that way.
Yeah.
You can't buy fitness, and that's one thing I love about it. It's the one thing I know I'm not going to just be given. My education, everything, I was really fortunate.
Yes.
But this is one thing I have to go out and get myself.
Got to earn every step of that.
Yeah. So.
Wasn't the one day there was a big hill?
Pardon?
Was it hill?
There was a lot of hills, but not really hills, mountain. It was like 25%.
Oh, right.
It's all about the last one on the Marathon Des.
Somebody
Somebody wants to ask you goodbye.
Yeah.
Sorry, Guy, go for it. Sorry, you got the
Yeah, Jodie, fantastic achievement. My brother lives in Ouarzazate. He's been there 20 years. I know not only is it very hot, people won't realize how dry it is as well. So it's a fantastic achievement. I had a question really for you, which is, was there anything in the race that informed your understanding of the principles more? Is there one thing that the race, the preparation for it, achieving it, informed your understanding of the principles at all?
I think maybe the outcome of it. So that probably, I would say the outcome of the race. So I finished 8th female overall, and I didn't have an expectation of that. I had an expectation of A, to finish, B, to try and come top 50. And if I did come top 20, that was a great achievement. But beyond that I didn't think. So the outcome, because that didn't make a difference to how I felt. So it didn't change who I was. For me, it was the complete journey to it. The outcome was just a consequence of it. So I think that's a nice thing, knowing that an outside, something from the outside didn't have the ability to make me anything different when I would potentially used to search for that.
Beautiful.
Failing would have been a different thing. That really would have had a consequence, an impact on me. But which I think was probably the most important thing to me. It doesn't define me.
Fantastic. Because it's such a huge achievement. To say that is really quite something. Thank you.
Thanks, Guy.
Thank you.
Is anybody else on Zoom? I see we've lost Cam, but anybody else? Oh, we lost somebody else. Who wants to ask anything? Hi, Joe.
Hi. That's me.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, Jodie. Look, you know that I've been backing you 150%. And I think it's really, really brave of you to kind of do what you do and speak how you've spoken so openly and honestly, and well done for just doing such an amazing job for IHEART.
I think Jo
Thank you.
could be your biggest fan.
No, thanks.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, probably to finish off, like, there's no more questions, but the support from you guys, from Jo, has been, you know, incredible, and it was special to raise money for a charity like IHEART, and you know, it's a family, and that's what's really important. So just, yeah, thank you so much, and I really hope, and I know people have started to do events and to raise money, and I'm sure there will be so many more in the future.
We just applied for some places in the London Marathon, which is very hard to get, but if not so, we'll try and hook onto another charity and then, you know, give our quota to them and then run. But my son, who's 19, who's he's learning in a Jewish learning center in Newcastle, he actually said to us, how about I run the marathon this year for IHEART? I think you've started something, so a whole bunch of us now put in applications and we'll see. So I feel a little embarrassed that we're running the marathon, one marathon in normal temperatures in London, you know. It's like big deal, you know.
Well, if it was going to be the week before the actual marathon, it would have been the hottest on record.
Oh, really?
So you never know.
You never know. You never know. I just want to say, I mean, you're part of the IHEART family. We see you as an ambassador, and you come from, I know you come from roots and a background where people want to give and make a difference. And I think we recently applied for a grant, which we didn't get, which is just how it goes, of talking about creating something from your lived experience, because that's a very powerful thing. That was why I had a passion to create IHEART, was from the lived experience of really struggling and suffering, and saying we can make a difference here. And I feel like what you're doing is taking your lived experience and making a difference, which is such a powerful thing to do. And that because IHEART's a part of it, we're immensely grateful. So we're so excited about future collaborations and projects, because I think this is just the beginning. I'll give you a chance to write the PhD and then
challenge in the marathon.
I can believe it. I can believe
Terry,
Yes,
straight off the inside knowledge. At one point, Jodie and I were talking about an IHEART run that was around London in a heart shape. So who needs to run the marathon? We'll get it.
I like that. We can eat candy floss and have milkshakes. It's more like that. It'll be a bit of a love run. Gentle.
Love run.
Exactly. So any other kind of final questions or before we wrap up? Okay, so I'd like to, just on behalf of IHEART again, thank Jodie so much.
And you have to thank my mum, because mum, without her support, she, you know, me doing the marathon and then obviously getting me better. And
she's our angel, so she's a fairy godmother. Call her our fairy godmother, and so
yeah,
absolutely. Thanks,
Well done,
Mom.
everybody.
Thanks, Mom.